Hey everyone, it's Axe here. So lately there's been a lot of talk about is Melee dying and why aren't the top players entering tournaments? I think that a lot of the top players don't want to talk about this kind of stuff, so as someone who was kind of close to the top, at least for a little while, I wanted to give my own thoughts on it. Now, keep in mind that I'm not speaking for every top player. These are just my own opinions based off personal experience and working with a lot of the other top players throughout the years. So, with that said, why aren't a lot of the best players entering tournaments right now? Well, ironically, all of the current top players used to enter like every weekly, and eventually they started winning all of their weeklies consistently, and eventually people just wanted to see someone challenge them. So in turn, the top players start getting cheered against, and that could happen for months to years, and it doesn't feel good for the top players. But what keeps them there is the motivation to win much larger tournaments, major tournaments, and sometimes the money, but normally there's not much money involved in locals, so it's usually the former reason. But what happens when they actually achieve that goal of becoming one of the best players in the world and they're able to win major tournaments now? Well, they end up not having a reason to enter the weekly tournaments anymore. They just don't want to deal with the mental stress of the community at large popping off like crazy if they drop a single game. And the practice doesn't help them much anymore either. So they'd rather just practice with other top players or their coaches or training partners. They're also popular enough now, becoming the best players in the world, that they can just make money from their streams. And the money from the weeklies that they were making just isn't worth it anymore. Now, you could ask, what about doing online weeklies for stream content? Well, for most top players, it's still not worth it for the mental stress of the community at large, just wanting to see you lose. It really sucks. But some top players are much more willing to do it with secondaries, where that just takes a whole bunch of the stress off of you. I think one of the few exceptions to this is a player like Hungrybox. Like that guy has been cheered against for years and years, and he actually did almost quit because of the crazy stress put on him. But he's somehow still going, and he's still entering a lot of things. So I definitely give him a ton of credit for that. But most of the top players would rather save that kind of stress for only the major tournaments. So how often do major tournaments happen? Well, to go over it, last April through May was SCL, and then in July was Smash Summit 11, September was Riptide, November was Main Stage, and December was Smash Summit 12 and Smash World Tour for the Plup fans. And January was Ludwig's tournament in place of Genesis. And now we're in March, and in March there's supposed to be Double Down. That unfortunately got postponed, so it seems like we're all waiting till April for Genesis. Looking at this, you can see there's a trend of a major tournament happening about once every 2 months, where pretty much all of the top players are in attendance. So you could ask, in between these months, why don't the top players enter TMT, Training Mode Tuesdays? That's a big one because there's $1,000 put into the prize pools of these tournament every week, which I think is absolutely amazing. Like, it's super cool that FlyQuest is doing that. But you have to understand, to the best players' perspectives, to the current top players, it's not $1,000 you can win. It's $1,000 split up between two separate tournaments on the same day, split between regions. And first place wins 40% of the half of the 1,000. So that's $200. So you could potentially win $200 max entering these tournaments. And I think that to the top players, it's still not enough to justify entering in their eyes. They know that the best players are going to be going to these majors instead with way, way higher prize pools and stakes on the line. So they'd rather just wait for those. This is also why sub goals happen for online tournaments. To be real, the top players don't actually want to enter, even with the potential prizes they could win or increasing their sub count by like 50 or so. So the sub goal is kind of like their incentive even if it's only for secondaries. I think the secondaries just help them feel more at ease, so they're way more willing to even do this in the first place. Now, I personally don't really sub goal for anything for the most part. I kind of just straight up not enter if I don't want to enter, or I enter if I do want to. But not that I can even play at all right now because I've been healing from a thumb injury for the whole past month. But this is how I believe that the top players feel when they do sub goals. And honestly, I think it's totally fine to do that. Now, in Moki's case, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen his video on this. He's been basically starved of competition since the pandemic started, so he doesn't really have a reason to sub goal because he actually wants to enter these events and compete against the other players who enter the weekly tournaments and everything. But for most of the like around top 10 North American players, they would rather just save it for the major tournaments. In the end, these are just my opinions. I'm sure some of the top players might not feel this way and probably think that I'm crazy. But, as for the state of Melee, I think it just seems bad during small droughts like this, mainly because Double Down was postponed. But I personally think that having majors every other month where pretty much everyone attends is fine. I'm sure we would all love to see it happen more often, but I personally think it's okay. And especially with the ridiculous amounts of events that are about to happen, thanks to Smash World Tour being announced and any other Summit style events that are going to come up, I think that we have a ton to look forward to. But anyway, this is Axe. Thanks for watching.